Welcome to DT Audio, where we bring you the craziest Reddit stories on the internet. This video is strictly for entertainment purposes. The content is collected from various sources on the internet and is intended for audiences 13 and older. There is no intention to discriminate, offend, or attack any individual or organization. The wild part is Paul forged Sarah's signature during her surgery and named their son something she begged not to use. 6 years later, I met Paul's wife and convinced her to name their baby girl after Sarah, turning Paul's new life into a daily reminder of his betrayal. Stick around, because today's stories will leave you absolutely speechless. Story 1. I named his new baby after the woman he tried to erase. Alright, so quick apology up front. I'm on mobile, and this story is long, so if the formatting acts up, that's on my phone. This is one of those situations where it feels like everybody involved made one bad choice after another. And then, 6 years later, the universe handed me the perfect opening. Let me introduce the cast. My sister, who I'm going to call Sarah. Her ex, Paul. Paul's new wife, Jane. Paul's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Doe. My oldest brother, Zeke. And then, obviously, my parents and me. Okay. Here we go. About a year before the revenge really kicked off, Sarah was 22 and Paul had been her boyfriend for 4 years. They got pregnant. They got engaged right away. At first, it was all happy pictures and we can't wait energy. But Sarah's pregnancy was brutal. She developed hyperemesis, which is basically the kind of nausea and vomiting that doesn't let up. She was in pain constantly. Then came gestational diabetes on top of it. And emotionally, she was just done with the whole experience because it didn't feel like some magical journey. It felt like survival. Paul, meanwhile, started getting irritated every time Sarah vented. He actually said things along the lines of, "Your body is built for this. It can't be that bad." And that's when the cracks really started showing. Now, Sarah was due around Valentine's Day. Paul's parents were excited for 2 reasons: grandbaby, and the fact that the baby would be born on a holiday. Sarah hated that. She didn't want her son born on a holiday, even a small one. She didn't want his birthday to feel like it was about the calendar, not about him. And she absolutely hated the idea of naming him something Valentine related. Mr. and Mrs. Doe basically tried to push it like, if you name him Valentine or Valentino, it'll be extra special. Sarah was not having it. She thought it was tacky. She thought kids would bully him for it. She thought it would make him feel like he was just a cute theme. Paul liked the name, but he agreed to compromise and use something normal instead. Fast forward to February. Sarah was miserable, and things got worse. She ended up on bed rest because her blood pressure started doing unpredictable spikes and dips whenever she stood or walked. So she's stuck there, trying to make it through, praying the baby doesn't arrive on Valentine's Day. But here's the thing about babies. They don't care what you want. Sarah went into labor on Valentine's Day. I remember sitting in a waiting room with my dad, my brothers, and Paul. Paul couldn't stand the idea of being in the delivery room because he thought it was gross. And honestly, that was his choice. But the part that made me mad was that he could have gone in if he wanted to. He just didn't. Meanwhile, I wasn't allowed in either because I was too young. So I sat there, watching the minutes crawl by, while Sarah was going through hell. My dad went home with my younger brothers. My oldest brother, Zeke, stayed behind. Zeke wanted to be a good future brother-in-law, so he checked in on Paul. And Paul was filling out baby paperwork like he was calm. Like he wasn't worried at all. Zeke asked why Paul handled the paperwork himself instead of waiting for Sarah to do it. Paul said he just wanted Sarah to rest and heal, since she was going to surgery soon. Zeke, being 16, didn't question it. But looking back, I can't believe what happened next. Because after 16 hours of labor, Sarah's son was born. On Valentine's Day. And Sarah was not okay. She had to have an emergency C-section. Then the doctors found a tumor behind her uterus. Not cancerous, thank God, but it was severe and massive. I'm talking about a size that basically shouldn't have been missed. Doctors were shocked it hadn't shown up on ultrasound. It explained her back pain and the blood pressure issues. They rushed into more surgery, and eventually Sarah had to have a full hysterectomy. That meant her son would be her only child. So Sarah is in surgery, and Paul is handling everything baby related. And this is where it turns into the kind of betrayal that doesn't feel real until you're living it. Paul forged Sarah's signature on the paperwork. He waited until after she was out of surgery, then handed the forms over. And the name on the birth certificate for their Valentine's Day baby was Valentino. The name Sarah hated from day one. Even worse, Paul had already picked out the name he wanted, and Sarah had told him no. She wanted it changed. She had made it clear. But somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, it still happened. And Paul's parents acted like they witnessed her signing. They only showed up at the last minute. No one ever charged Paul with forgery. It was treated like it was normal. Sarah dumped him after everything settled. She got their son's name changed a month later. She was willing to do split custody, because the kid deserved to know his father. But Paul vanished. No contact. No updates. Nothing. Then, months later, we found out why. A mutual friend tagged someone in Paul's wedding photos. Paul got married to Jane. And the timing made it obvious, Paul had been cheating on Sarah while she was pregnant. Sarah was furious, but there wasn't much she could do besides file for child support and keep moving. She did what strong people do. She raised her son and built a life. And now we get to the part where my revenge story turns into something you'd see in a movie. 6 years later. Sarah is still a single mom, still crushing it. At this point, I'm working as a hairdresser at a local chain salon. One day, sitting in my chair is Jane. His wife. Jane has no idea who I am. That tracks, because the mutual friend who stayed in touch with Paul said Jane didn't know anything. She didn't know about Sarah. She didn't know there was another kid. She didn't even know Paul had a history that included a forged signature. So I decided to be normal. No weird energy. Just customer service. Jane is heavily pregnant and talking like she's excited, but stressed. She tells me her husband is cold and unsupportive. She's due in about 10 weeks. They still haven't chosen a name for their baby girl. And that's when I realized something. I had a chance. I asked what kind of name she wanted. Jane said she wanted something unique and unusual, but not something ridiculous. You know the type. The kind of name that looks like a typo. Paul had suggested a bunch of names, but she hated all of them. So I asked, what about Sarah? Now, here's the detail that matters. Sarah is not actually her stage name in real life. She was named after an older family member, and her parents created the feminine version of a name because there wasn't a female equivalent. It's a gorgeous name. It fits exactly what Jane said she wanted. Jane loved it. She leaned into it immediately, like it was meant for her. And later, when I checked Jane's social media, I saw she had put her foot down about it. Their daughter's name was Sarah. The same name Paul's first baby's mother had. The same woman Paul tried to erase. The same woman he betrayed. And the best part? Paul now has a daughter with that name, meaning it's a daily reminder of what he did. Because that baby is not just named after a theme. It's named after the woman he tried to bulldoze. Meanwhile, Sarah's son is 10 years old now. He has a new name, no contact with his biological father, and he sometimes goes by Val as a family nickname, mostly because it's familiar and he doesn't want to deal with the drama at school. Sarah pretends to hate when we call him that, jokingly. But she's fine with it as long as her son is okay. And he's got a great guy in his life now, someone who shows up like a father. So yeah. Paul ruined Sarah's only birth experience. He forged her signature. He picked a name she fought against. He disappeared when she had every right to expect loyalty. And 6 years later, when I met Jane in my chair, I made sure Paul would never, ever be able to fully move on from Sarah. Because now, in his house, there's a little girl with her name. And every time it's spoken, it drags the truth back into the light. TLDR, Paul forged Sarah's signature while she was in surgery and named their son something Valentine related she hated. He later dumped her and married his pregnant affair partner. 6 years later, I met Paul's wife at work and convinced her to name their daughter Sarah, even though she had no idea Sarah and the first kid existed. Story 2, the locker thief who thought he was untouchable. It all started around the 2003 to 2004 school year, and honestly, it was infuriating. There was this non-stop crime wave at my high school. Not every locker got hit, but enough did that everyone knew somebody who got robbed. It was the kind of rumor that didn't even feel like a rumor anymore. You'd hear, yeah, my cousin's stuff got taken, and then the next day someone else was like, wait, that happened to me too. The school's response was basically, well, you probably shared your combo, and get this, whenever a theft happened, They'd charge students money to change the locker combination. Like, if your stuff got stolen, you were automatically guilty in their eyes. They acted like the only thing you did wrong was trust the wrong person. So when my graphing calculator disappeared from my locker, I was already annoyed. But I was extra sure it wasn't my fault, because I never gave out my combination. My friends were the type who loved messing with each other, but I still kept my lock info to myself. That calculator cost me about $150 back then, and then I got hit with another $150 to have the lock combo changed. In 2003 money, that was real pain. If you ever had to buy a TI-86 around then, you already know. Now here's where things get wild. My dad had a drinking buddy in the county detective world. I'll call him Detective Buddy, and yeah, he might as well have been my uncle. He went to the school to talk about the thefts and asked for security footage, specifically for the day my calculator got taken. The school basically waved him off like it was nothing. They told him it wasn't a real problem and that I must have shared my combo. Detective Buddy tried again, got a warrant for the camera footage, and the school fought it in court. Their whole argument was student privacy, like somehow that meant the footage didn't exist. So Detective Buddy shows up at our house with a laptop in a laptop bag. He looks me dead in the face and says, "Put this in your locker. Tell everyone you know you've got a brand new laptop." I was like, okay. Sure, Uncle Buddy. 3 days later, I walk up to my locker between classes and the whole situation is gone. The laptop is missing. The bag is missing too. And, for extra insult, a 24-ounce bottle of Coke is also gone. I'm not even kidding, I think a couple pens disappeared as well. I text Detective Buddy right away, "The laptop got taken." He replies, "Stand by for the shit show. Also, you reported the theft to the police, right?" I'm confused, but I confirm that I did. Then I don't hear anything for the rest of the day. The next morning, Detective Buddy shows up at school with 3 uniformed officers. They pull a student out of class, a kid named Dave, and they also bring Dave's mom in from the front office area where she worked. The principal was furious. Like, visibly mad. He was going off about how they had the nerve to accuse the school or the staff of anything, and how they should have just taken matters elsewhere. You could feel the embarrassment in the building. But the reason was simple. Detective Buddy had secretly put a GPS tracker in the laptop bag. Once it got stolen, he used it to get a warrant to search a specific house. The laptop was worth over $1,000, which mattered because in that system, it turns a theft into a felony. The very next afternoon, he set up a table outside the school grounds with a tent and a banner across the top. The banner basically said, "If you've had something stolen from your locker, come see me." By the next morning, Dave and his mom were in the paper. And here's what Dave allegedly did. He used his mom's login credentials to get onto the school network. Then he pulled locker combinations for basically everyone. After that, he started opening random lockers and grabbing whatever had value. If he didn't have a specific target, he'd still check lockers and take what he could. When Detective Buddy set up the stand for more victims, the charges stacked up fast. Each locker counted as its own offense. If the stolen item was worth less than $1,000, it was treated like a misdemeanor. If it was worth more than $1,000, it became a felony. In less than a week, the case went from this is probably a random theft problem to this is a major investigation. Dave and his mom were hit with 9 felony charges and 35 misdemeanor charges. When I finally got the full story from Detective Buddy, it clicked how he planned it. He told me to stash a brand new laptop in my locker, knowing it would be stolen, because the bag had a GPS tracker. He didn't just want a theft report. He wanted proof tied to a specific location, with a value high enough to bump the case severity. And because my calculator theft happened on a different day, with a different locker combo, he was able to get both a felony and a misdemeanor count off me alone. The numbers were huge. The 9 felonies added up to around $12,000 in proven stolen value, and the 35 misdemeanors were around $3,000. Important detail, that was only what they could prove and trace back. The real mess was probably bigger, but this was what they had evidence for. They also didn't let Dave and his mom just plead and move on. This was the biggest local crime case in years. The county hadn't seen anything like it in decades. Now for the revenge part that people don't always talk about. After everything blew up, the students who got charged $150 for combo changes started a class action lawsuit against the school district. The argument was simple: the school didn't properly investigate the thefts even after they were repeatedly reported, and then they charged students money to fix their own probably your fault problem. There were 218 people in the class, and after attorney fees, everyone got about $85. The principal also lost his job. Not subtle, not quiet. He got fired for being a complete bonehead about refusing to deal with what everyone knew was happening. Here's the financial kicker. The school claimed the $150 fee was justified because they brought in a locksmith to change the locks. But they had already paid the locksmith for the combo changes. Then, after the lawsuit, they had to return money per locker. The district ended up losing around $21,800 plus legal fees. So yeah, they got hit from two directions. Then came the criminal trial fallout. The prosecutor's offer was brutal, 10 years for Dave, and 15 for Dave's mom. Dave was basically looking at years split between juvenile and adult time. They refused. So it went to trial. Dave got 1 year in prison for each felony, which was the state's minimum. Then he got 1 month probation for each misdemeanor. By the end, it added up to 9 years plus 35 months probation. His mom got even more time, 18 years in jail, plus 6 years probation. I attended a lot of the trial, and I'll tell you, it was hard to watch because the evidence was so clean. They had video footage of Dave entering more than 20 lockers. They also had stolen items in their possession that matched the charges. The judge wasn't impressed, either. You could tell the judge was thinking about all the other cases that might have happened but couldn't be proven. And yeah, Dave's mom's sentencing day was its own kind of nightmare to witness. But the best part, the part that actually mattered to me personally, was this: I got my graphing calculator back. It had my name engraved inside the battery compartment, so I knew it was mine the second I saw it. I still have it today. And every time I look at it, I remember how the school ignored the thefts, how Dave tried to play untouchable, and how one lucky, tracked laptop turned our whole nightmare into a court case. Story 3, my boss stole my Super Bowl seats, so I helped get him fired. Alright, so when the NFL playoffs roll back around, you know I'm gonna come with one of those revenge stories that makes you sit up in your chair. It started about a year before all this chaos, when I was working at a consulting firm. I'm a diehard 49ers fan, like the kind of person who tailgates all day and talks football with the intensity of a coach. I had a few key clients, but one guy in particular really trusted me. We'd meet, talk through projects, then grab drinks or dinner afterward. We actually became friends. He knew how badly I wanted to see the Niners in the Super Bowl. And he had access to 2 extra company seats. Not just any seats either. The kind of seats where you're basically close enough to smell the grass. He told me he wanted to surprise me, so he handed those tickets to the partner on his account. Let's call him Dickhead. Partner. The Super Bowl happens. We lose. It sucked. I'm not gonna lie, I was still smiling because I knew I would have been in those seats if everything had been handled right. Then, next time I'm meeting my client, he casually drops, "Hey, quick question. Why didn't you go? I heard somebody else was in your seats." I'm like, wait, what seats? I didn't have Super Bowl tickets. And that's when he hits me with the truth. He says, "I gave Dickhead partner the tickets for you. He was supposed to make it happen." So now I'm confused, annoyed, and trying to stay calm because this is corporate life. I ask him to keep it quiet and tell me to look into it. The very next week, I find out from a secretary that Dickhead partner gave those Super Bowl seats to another client. Like it was just a random perk he could shuffle around. Look, I've been in offices long enough to know people bend rules. But this was the Super Bowl, and it was the 49ers, and it was seats near the 30-yard line. That's not bending rules. That's stealing somebody's moment. I thought about confronting Dickhead partner directly, but then I realized something. The client was the one who noticed I wasn't there. If I let my client handle it, it would look like he was reacting to the situation, not me making a scene. So I text him, "Hey, thanks again for the seats. It looks like they were given to another client." He responds immediately, in all caps, "Are you shitting me?" Then, pretend I never told you. Let me handle it. A few days later, we're called into a meeting at their office. No big deal, just a partner and client sit down, the usual stuff. But here's what Dickhead partner didn't know: my client had already set up a trap. We walk into the conference room. It's the normal people, plus a woman in her 30s I've never seen. Then my client stands up like he's introducing someone at a wedding. He goes, "Dickhead partner, this is Stephanie. She's with another department. She wanted to sit in on this meeting." Then he turns to me and says, "Hey op, you two must already know her from the Super Bowl." Now, Stephanie stands up and goes to shake my hand. And she says, "Oh, I don't think so. Did we meet there? I'm sorry, I probably forgot. My client looks straight at dickhead partner and goes, Steph, how much did you have to drink? You were literally sitting right next to them. I look my client dead in the face and say, sorry, I wasn't there. Are you thinking of someone else? At this point dickhead partner is squirming. You could practically see the excuse forming in real time. He starts with, Stephanie jumps in over him like she's reading from a script he didn't know existed. No. Someone from another company was in those other seats. By the way, I'm curious. Why are we giving company tickets to people we don't work with? Is there a project I don't know about? And it's so obvious she's asking because the answer should not exist. Dickhead partner tries again. My client cuts in immediately. Dickhead partner, I gave you those tickets for op, right? Dickhead partner's face turns bright red. He blinks like a man trying to reboot his brain. Then he says, well, he wasn't able to make it. So he must have given the seats away to someone else. He turns to me like, right? You'll cover me? I don't cover anything. I just keep it simple. What are you talking about? You gave me tickets to the Super Bowl? Then my client raises his voice, like he's done being patient. Those tickets were a personal thank you gift for me to op. Did you give them away to someone else? Was it another client? And dickhead partner finally runs out of exits. He tries one last dodge, saying maybe something got mixed up internally. My client goes quiet for a long moment. You could tell dickhead partner was sweating through his shirt. Then my client stands up, grabs his stuff, and basically ends the meeting. He says, I think this meeting is over. It seems like I owe you a thank you gift. Let's go to lunch. Stephanie, you're welcome to join. Then he turns back to dickhead partner and says, Dickhead partner, I need to evaluate our relationship. Please go back home and expect to hear from us next week. Dickhead partner tries to follow us, like he thought he could charm his way out. Stephanie, still calm but deadly, tells him no. She asks the front desk to walk him out. The second the elevator doors close, everybody starts laughing like we just watched the best episode of a show ever. Stephanie was not actually a VP. She was just an employee my client drafted into the role. But she was also a fellow Niners fan, and honestly, she ended up being awesome to hang out with. On the way to lunch, dickhead partner texts me desperate mode. He says I need to cover for the firm and we can talk later. I reply, yes, we need to talk, but I'll see what I can do. Then my client tells me to wait a couple hours and respond to him. So I do. And here's what he demanded, point by point. 1. Expect invoices for the resale value of the Super Bowl tickets plus the lunch. And yes, the resale value was way higher than face value. We're talking over 10 grand. 2. He wanted a direct apology. 3. A written apology to his company for what he called theft. 4. Dickhead partner was not allowed to deal with them again. Ever. Only me or another partner. This blew up internally. Other partners heard about it and suddenly everyone was very interested in making sure dickhead partner understood consequences. The client ended up transferring to a different partner, which meant dickhead partner lost the profit share tied to that relationship. And the other partners made him pay the invoices back out of his own salary. So yeah, he didn't just lose tickets. He lost money, credibility, and a client. All because he thought nobody would notice I didn't show up. Honestly, what did he think was going to happen? That I'd just smile and thank him for stealing my seats? The long-term part is the real sting. The job itself became poison because dickhead partner stayed. I left the firm a few months later for a better position. As for the client, the relationship with that firm ended about a year later. The client now works with a good friend of mine at a competing firm. And me? I'm still mad I missed the Super Bowl in person. We lost, sure, but I want that experience. I'm hoping we make it back this year so I can finally go, watch the Niners live, and feel like I got my moment back. Go Niners! Story 4, she stole my debit card, then tried to break into my room on Valentine's Day. It all started about a year ago, right in that first semester freshman fog when you think you can handle anything because you're independent now. I was in an honors style program, which meant we all got shoved into one co-ed dorm building. Everyone in the program lived close, took similar classes, and basically treated the hallway like a group chat. And like a rookie, I started dating a girl who lived right above me. Let's call her Megan. She was loud. Not fun loud, More like I'm going to talk about myself until the sun burns out loud. She also loved dropping these confidence lines like, I'm fairly aggressive. Honestly, I should have treated that sentence like a flashing warning sign. But I was young, I was curious, and I figured I could deal with her personality. Then Thanksgiving break ended, and things went sideways. One evening after class, my mom called me. She wasn't even mad at first, just confused. She said she noticed weird activity on my checking account. Back then I didn't have a credit card. My debit card was basically my lifeline for everything. Turns out $104.29 was gone. The bank said it wasn't one random purchase. It was 6 separate Grubhub orders, all over a little span of time, and they'd been happening for more than 2 weeks. I hadn't ordered anything like that. I barely spent money that semester. So I did what any trusting boyfriend would do. I called Megan. I asked straight up if she knew anything about it. She immediately denied it and told me to cancel my debit card. The way she said it made it sound like she was helping me, like she was the victim of the situation too. So I got on the phone with the bank, canceled the card, and then I went to Grubhub. I messaged them on Twitter like, my card was stolen and used for food orders. Can I get receipts for those transactions? They sent what they could. But here's the thing. The redaction wasn't really redaction. The first and last receipt still had Megan's name visible. And the most recent order? It was only 2 hours old. 2 hours old. She was probably still mid-snack when I canceled my card. And it gets worse. Megan and I both had unlimited dining plans paid for by our parents. We lived maybe 500 feet from the nearest dining hall. She didn't need delivery. She didn't need my money. So I texted her again, I have the receipts from Grubhub. Are you sure you didn't place those orders? Her response was pure venom. Basically, fuck you for suspecting me. Look, at this point I wasn't just annoyed. I was furious. So I started planning how to prove it. I wanted security footage of her picking up the delivery. And then, by midnight, Megan showed up at my door. She came in crying. Like, full breakdown mode. And she confessed. Not only did she admit she did it, she also told me she'd been a serial shoplifter for a while. I was exhausted, so I told her to leave. I thought, okay, at least I can handle this in the morning. I'd deal with everything tomorrow. Except tomorrow came fast. By the next day, everyone in our building somehow knew the story. I'm pretty sure Megan had already spun her own version and tried to make herself look like the innocent one. So I sent her a breakup text, cut my losses, and told myself the $104.29 was gone. I figured that was the end of it. It was not. Less than 2 days later, I noticed someone standing behind me in my room. Megan. I hadn't even heard her come in. She didn't say hello. She just demanded, give me my stuff. Where's my stuff? I told her I didn't know what she was talking about. She got frantic. She kept saying, you know. Then she tore through the room like she was hunting for something she refused to name. And the moment she grabbed whatever she came for, she was gone. I locked my door immediately. Because obviously this wasn't over. Within minutes, she was back. She stood outside my door, knocking hard, demanding I let her in. The knocking turned violent. Then she started shouting things like, I know you're fuck ing in there. And opened the mother f ing door. Remember, this was a dorm full of students who all knew each other. People could hear every word. She started rattling the handle. Then she threw her weight into the door, shoulder first, like she was trying to break it down. I heard the door bend. I even heard a crack. I lived next door to my RA, but apparently he was busy in another universe. So I texted him for help. Not long after, he sent backup. Multiple staff showed up and got her downstairs. When they brought her out, she finally admitted what she wanted. It was just a t-shirt and keychain I'd gotten her for my birthday, so yeah, she tried to break down my door over a gift she'd already given me. I let her have it, because at that point I just wanted silence. But the university didn't let it slide. Once I told the resident life staff what happened, they filed paperwork for a no-contact order between us. They also told me to contact campus police. The police basically said, if you want your money back, small claims court. Which would have been great, except I didn't have a car and I didn't have money for an Uber to get there. So that option died on the spot. Then, at the police department's request, I contacted the school's Title IX office and explained everything. They were interested, to say the least. And here's where Megan's life went from messy to catastrophic. A Title IX representative told me they were bringing 3 misconduct charges against her: theft, threatening or violent behavior, and getting university staff involved in the incident. They asked me to be a witness in her disciplinary hearing. I agreed. I wanted it done cleanly. Then the representative dropped the hearing date. February 14th. Valentine's Day. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. By the time the hearing rolled around, the no contact order was still in effect, but my friends had been keeping tabs on Megan. And she was failing. Failing hard. Someone in my math course told me Megan had tried to hook up with him while she was dating me. He said no repeatedly. And she kept rewriting the story to anyone who would listen, trying to turn friends against me. So when I found out she had a new boyfriend and was still trying to act like the main character, I felt this weird satisfaction. Because on Valentine's Day, her disciplinary hearing would decide what kind of main character she really was. I showed up alone to the hearing office. It was not a courtroom. It was basically a university board made up of grad students, and they said it could go late. Megan did not show up alone. She brought both her parents as character witnesses. And then, because apparently this was a movie, her parents also hired a lawyer. A lawyer. For a university disciplinary hearing. The board members seemed annoyed that it even got that far, but Megan's family was convinced they needed the heavy artillery. To make it fair, the board offered me pro bono legal representation. That's where I met Jimmy. Jimmy was a junior economics major. He'd already read my account of what happened. He told me my screenshots of the Grubhub receipts gave the charges a solid chance of sticking. Then I told him something I hadn't said earlier. When Megan tried to break down my door, I didn't just text my RA. I filmed the whole thing. Jimmy got obsessed with the video. And when it was time, he played it on a big screen in front of everyone. The room went absolutely wild. Because suddenly it wasn't my word against hers. In Megan's version, I supposedly gave her permission to buy food with my account. In her version, she politely asked for her belongings, and I hid them from her like some villain. But in the video, she's kicking and screaming, clearly trying to get into my dorm room, clearly trying to force the situation. The board members watched her story collapse in real time. And Megan's parents? They flipped out. They were basically blaming each other and acting shocked like, "Why didn't you tell us you did this?" Meanwhile, her lawyer started raising complaints about evidence and disclosure, like we were in a real trial. One board member basically shut it down with a reminder that this wasn't court. The lawyer kept pushing. Megan's parents kept panicking. Jimmy tried not to laugh. And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't even feel like I was doing revenge. I felt like I was watching consequences finally catch up to someone who'd been lying with confidence. The board found Megan responsible on all 3 charges. My side argued for termination of her housing agreement and restitution. Her side argued for restitution and a reprimand. They compromised. Her family paid back most of the money she stole, but not all of it. 2 of the 6 orders had the same price, and the lawyer convinced the board I'd accidentally duplicated 1 order on my documentation. So it wasn't a perfect pay every cent ending, but it was still a massive hit. Megan was also forced to move into a different dorm building. And honestly, that probably would have helped her even if she hadn't blown up her own reputation. Because by then, everyone in our program's building knew what she'd done and how she'd lied. People didn't want to be around her. Nobody wanted her as a roommate. By the time she had to move, she'd already failed her classes again. And once her parents had paid for tuition, unused dining, the lawyer, and restitution, they pulled her out of school. So where is she now? Last I heard, she came back part-time later, but I never saw her again because the no contact order stayed in place. I did end up reconnecting with the guy she tried to seduce, and we're Facebook friends now. And Jimmy? Jimmy and I connected on LinkedIn. As for me, I learned something the hard way. I no longer date fairly aggressive people. Because sometimes fairly aggressive isn't a personality trait. Sometimes it's a warning label. Story 5. She dumped me over cancer, so I cashed out her lucky timing. It all started about a year before everything went nuclear. I had been dating this woman for 4 years. We weren't some messy, broke, on and off situation. We were both established, both professional, both homeowners in the same neighborhood. And each of us had a daughter living with us. Her girl was 11, mine was 16. We were talking like it was real. Marriage, building a house, raising the kids together. Even the house plans weren't casual. She had a neurological disease that would eventually leave her needing a wheelchair, so we were already thinking ADA friendly. We were actually building a future around it. Here's where I went all in. Since she was planning to sell and move, I started doing landscaping and construction work on her property. Not some half-assed help. I put real money into it. Roughly 30 grand. I ran everything through my business so it was legit, permitted, invoiced, and clean on paper. And we had a deal. The payment would come after her house sold. I kept my end of the bargain and didn't chase her for money because we'd already agreed on how it would work. Then I started getting sick. We were looking at other property to develop and finalizing the house drawings, and I couldn't keep food down. I was vomiting constantly, passing blood, losing weight fast. My stomach started swelling in a way that made no sense. I'm not talking maybe I ate something weird. I'm talking, this looks wrong. I went to the doctor and the tests were brutal. After a biopsy, they found a tumor in my stomach, the size of a golf ball. Chemo and radiation were next. Now while I'm dealing with that, her own health was acting up too. She started having small cognitive issues, and the stress of her job made it worse. She took a pay cut, about 20 grand a year, and moved into a lesser role just to cope. So I'm thinking, okay, we're both dealing with something. We're still a team. During this time, she became more present around my place. Weekends turned into her staying over. Sometimes it felt like her and my house were basically the same house. At one point, I suggested we make things easier financially. Put one of our homes on the market, move in together temporarily, and bridge the gap while the new house got built. I had good supplemental insurance and a long-term illness plan, so I genuinely believed we could get through it without her getting crushed. And then, right after that conversation, she changed. She got distant fast. Her daughter stopped coming over like before. She had excuses for everything. She stopped driving me to treatments. She stopped staying over. Then she hit me with the sentence that still makes me feel cold when I remember it. She said, and I swear this was word for word the vibe of it, "I love you, but I can't see myself taking care of someone this sick long term. I think we shouldn't see each other anymore." In a text. Honestly, it wrecked me. I'm not going to pretend it didn't. This was the first woman I'd truly opened up to since my wife died years earlier. I had kids to raise, and I was finally trying to build something stable again. But I tried to be mature. I really did. The next day, I gathered her things, packed them neatly, loaded everything into my truck, and dropped them off at her house while she was at work. I left them on the back porch so there would be zero awkward conversation. I told myself I was handling it with dignity. Then I walked around under the porch cover and noticed something that made my stomach turn even worse than the cancer. She was in the back living room on the couch. With a man. Not some random stranger. A guy she'd introduced to me as a lifelong friend. I found out later they'd been together long enough that he was already part of her life in a way I never got to process. We had dinner with them. We'd even gone on vacation with them. And now he's sitting there like he's been waiting for the moment I'd get sick enough to be replaced. I didn't confront her. I didn't argue. I just sent a text later telling her I'd leave her things at my place and she could pick them up whenever. So yeah, I kept it quiet. But I didn't forget. About 8 or 9 months later, I found out the real timeline. Her now ex-girlfriend told me they broke up because he confessed he'd been sleeping with my partner, dating back to around the time we were finishing the drawings for the new home. So while I was vomiting blood and doing chemo, she was already making her exit, and that friend was already moving in. At that point, I snapped into a different mode. Revenge mode. Here's the part that matters. When I was done with chemo and radiation for the time being, I started feeling healthier. I was going through neglected paperwork, and I stumbled across the file with all the invoices I'd issued. There it was. Unpaid, long overdue invoices totaling $32,680. I sent it straight to my attorney and started lien proceedings. And it turns out I timed it perfectly, because she was about to list her house. With interest piling up for roughly 19 months, plus attorney fees and all the legal costs, that after the sale agreement turned into a nightmare for her. After her house sold and everything was settled, she was left with about $10,000. $10,000 after losing the home, paying the mortgage off, and having her life rearranged by someone else's paperwork. Then she tried to buy another house and had to back out. So instead,